Hello, Cleveland. This is A.K. Alan Keller from the Too Much Effing Perspective podcast, and welcome to Quick Taps, our short cast where we ask our friends to share the best Spinal Tap moments from their lives, thus ruining any future book deals they may have envisioned. Haha, suckers! Our theme today is Spinal Tap moments that become feel-good moments, when our guests pull victory out of the jaws of defeat. Jaws? I wonder if that will play a role in our first story from my second cousin, James Caan. Not that James Caan. Former writer and producer on TV shows like Melrose Place and Star Trek Voyager, who went from the ER to ET faster than you can phone home.
So I was working as a doctor at St. John's Hospital in Santa Monica at the time, an emergency room doctor. And we got a phone call from some woman saying, can anyone there help us figure out how to resuscitate an alien? So the girl at the front desk put her on hold, and she routed the call to another doctor down there, a guy named Bob Murphy. She said, you want to take this? Sounds like a crank call. So it turned out it was Kathleen Kennedy who was producing E.T., and she was looking for technical assistance on E.T.'s resuscitation scene. So Murphy told her to come on down to the ER, and we'd give her a demonstration of what we'd do. So she came down with Melissa Matheson, who wrote E.T., and we put on a little demo. I was the victim. Murphy was the doctor pounding on my chest, and everyone was shouting out orders like we would in a real resuscitation. So they bought it. They really liked it. And they said, okay, you're hired for no money, but come on down to the set. So Murphy and Alex Lamponi, the guy who ran the ER, and I, and 3 or 4 nurses went down to Laird Studios, which is where they were filming E.T., where Gone with the Wind was shot, actually. So they were right in the midst of the scene of E.T. was dying, so they dressed us all up in hazmat suits, and we were all the extras, and the doctors circulating around and pounding on the little guy's chest and shouting out orders. They told us just to pretend this was a real resuscitation and shout out all the things that we would actually do. So, an amp of bicarb, an amp of epi, as if, that would help an alien from another planet. But we just did it like that. And while we were there, I figured this was the only time I'd ever have an opportunity to meet Spielberg. So I got up all my nerve, and the next day I brought in a copy of my science fiction book. I had just recently published my first original sci-fi book. It was called World Enough and Time. And so between takes, I kind of cornered him and said, this must happen to you all the time, but I wonder if I could give you my book, if you'd take a look at it sometime, and if, I'd love you to make a movie of it, of course, but, just tell me what you think. And he was very gracious and said, oh, sure, I'll put it on my shelf, and, I'm real busy now, but when I get some time, so I said, oh, thank you. We went through the rest of the scene that day. Next day we came back, got out, dressed up in our hazmat suits again. You can see me in the movie, but only if you don't blink, when E.T. flatlines and a bunch of doctors run in to save him. There's 5 doctors, and I'm the last one, and I'm holding a clipboard. Anyway, after that first take, PA runs up and says, Mr. Spielberg wants to see you. So I thought, oh, shit, I did something wrong. I looked in the camera, So I went over and he said, I read the first chapter, and we liked it a lot. Frank read it too, Frank Marshall. So I said, so you want to make a movie out of it? And he said, no. But if you want, you've got the gig of novelizing Poltergeist, which we're just in post-production on. But the deal is you have to be able to guarantee me you can write it in 1 month. So I thought for a nanosecond and thought, shit, I don't even know what a novelization is exactly. I don't know exactly how to write it. I'm scheduled to be working in the ER the entire next month. How can I ever do this? But I said, yeah, I can do it.
I, of course, had the direct opposite experience when I gave one of my screenplays to Meg Ryan, who was in line behind me at a deli. Instead of leading to work like James' experience with Spielberg, Meg looked at me like a raptor from Jurassic Park. Lighten up, you little megalomaniac. Anyway, our next guest is bass player Marcus Gonzalez from the IRS band Gren. Gren turned a trait Spinal Tap is known for, their punctuality, into a tour with one of rock music's greatest all-time bands.
Touring with the Ramones was absolutely the highlight of my career as a musician. We were brought on to play 5 shows with them. And we were so new and so scared, but also so hungry that we just would go out there, play our music, do our thing for, 28 minutes or whatever it was, and get the fuck off the stage. And that was in between dodging pennies and bottles. And after our 5 shows, Johnny came up to us and said, "Hey, you Grins guys are pretty good. You know when to get the fuck off stage." And we said, "Gee, thanks, Johnny." And about a week later, we got a call from our booking agent. They said, "Hey, the Ramones would like you to play some more shows with them." So we did it. We were on their Adios Amigos tour in 96, and we played everywhere from a racetrack in Connecticut to the Hollywood Palladium, which was fantastic. We had friends that I grew up with acting as roadies just so they could get backstage and be on stage when the Ramones went on. And it was just super cool.
Holy moly. I'm glad I wasn't sedated for that story. I better move on now. And our final guest is my friend Tracy Newman, who, before helping found the Groundlings Comedy Club in LA and creating the hit ABC sitcom According to Jim, became a master card manipulator like her then boyfriend, card trick legend Ricky Jay. Tracy almost needed a spinal tap after leaping in front of a golf cart to take advantage of a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity.
I started working doing women's hands in card games on television. And the Bob Hope Show was doing a takeoff on the movie Paper Moon. And Diane Cannon was a guest, and she was going to play the Tatum O'Neal part and be in a card game and deal and do fancy stuff. So they brought me in to do her hands. So, I'm at the rehearsal, and this guy runs in with a makeup bibble, and it's Johnny Carson. Because he had heard that there was a woman doing cards. He was at the studio, there was NBC, so he was right at the next studio. And, he introduces himself. He's watching me do the cards, and he's totally blown away. Anyway, and then he leaves. And I go do my thing, and, the rehearsal. So then when it came for the day to shoot the thing, which was 2 weeks later or something like that, I wrote a sketch for me to do with Ricky Jay on The Tonight Show. Long shot. I had it in a manila folder. I saw if I see Johnny Carson again, I'm going to give this to him or somebody related to the show. So I'm walking along to go to the Bob Hope thing, and I see a golf cart coming my way. And instead of getting out of the way, I stand in front of it, and it's Johnny Carson being driven. And they had to swerve to get out of my, to not hit me and everything. I mean, you'd have been shot doing this today. So dangerous what I was doing. So they kept going, and I ran after it, and I handed Johnny the manila folder, and I said, "Remember me, Tracy Newman, the woman who does cards?" And he goes like this, and then they keep going. So a couple weeks go by, and I get a call from Hank Bradford, who was the head writer. And he said, "We've rewritten that sketch for you and Johnny to do." So I did the sketch. And then they said, "Okay, go back behind the curtain and wait. And if he calls you out, you're going to go be on the panel." So damned if he didn't call me out. And I was thinking, this is unbelievable to me.
Wow, Tracy could have become the latest golf cart traffic statistic, but instead got to be on The Tonight Show with Carson himself. All I got to say about that is, hey-o! If you enjoyed this TMEP Show Quick Tap, please rate, review, and subscribe to our podcast. And if you have any of your own Spinal Tap moments you want to share, drop us a line at hello@tmepshow.com. Who knows, maybe we'll feature you on our next Quick Tap. Thanks for joining me today. I'm Alan Keller. Tune in next week when Alex and I return for a full episode of Too Much Effing Perspective.
Although it would be as great as having armadillos in our trousers, this podcast is not affiliated with This Is Spinal Tap, and no person or entity connected with the film has sponsored or endorsed its content. This podcast is not affiliated, sponsored, or licensed by Authorized Spinal Tap LLC or Century of Progress Productions. Too Much Effing Perspective is a Milwaukee Talkies original. Evergreen Podcast Network.